Kai, no!
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God.
Well, congratulations on the success of Banshee. I've been a big fan of yours for many years. All the way back to Celebration, and I was wondering when you're going to start working more here. I know you've done stuff here and there, but
here, you mean in America?
Yeah, just like Mods is doing,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's time will show.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when that happens. Well, this thing now is it does give you a bit of air time, screen time, whatever. I mean, there's there are many interesting movies around, also in America, but also in Europe, and I take what's good.
Right.
Is the glasses annoying because it kind of sort of just? Are you filming this or no? Not yet.
Yeah. The glasses do reflect a bit.
Yeah, I'll let him take them off.
Yeah. There you go. But were you actively seeking something at this time when Banshee came around? An actor outside of America, usually, when they do good work, in their home countries, and of course you've been great for many, 2 decades, but one of the ways that people get familiar with you is to play like a great villain or an independent film or whatever, but were you actively at this time seeking something like a role like Banshee because you make such an impact?
Oh, I see what you mean. I wasn't actually. I was actually at that point. I was preparing my own directorial debut. The movie that I finished last year. It's called Embryo, and I was in LA at that time, looking at locations and casting. But at the same time, my manager, sent a script along that I had sitting in my lap for 3 weeks because I didn't have time to read it and because I was doing all that other stuff. So finally, I read it. I was like, "This is pretty good. This is good. It could be interesting." So I went back to Denmark and I did a tape for them that I sent over, and they liked it. And eventually they hired me. They sent some more scenes over, and I did those for them, and then they wanted me for it. So, but I wasn't. It was funny because I wasn't actually. I didn't really have time. And she kept saying, "Oh, read this. This is a good bunch of people. It's HBO or Cinemax. Same kind of company."
Of course, Alan Ball too, who's had a lot of success.
Yeah, Alan Ball as well. So yeah, I know, but it's a weird one. Some other projects you read immediately. Oh, this could be good, and you're working for it. But this was just kind of dismissing, and this is the one that actually turned out happening. But I always have a lot of offers from Europe and Denmark, which is a very it's a good country to work in. I think we do good movies here. So.
Great movies. So it was mainly the script. Was it the pilot, or did you read a bunch of them?
No, it was just the pilot.
Right.
That I thought had a good, fun sort of genre, action, interesting characters in that whole world of this heightened reality kind of a thing, And I think if done well, it could be pretty cool, entertaining,
Are you aware that right now in America, that is kind of the golden age of television shows? Where with
yes,
Breaking Bad.
Oh, that's partly why I was I grew up with when HBO came out with all these. Now you're talking about Alan Ball, 6 Feet Under, and all those great shows that came along, and for a long time, I thought the interesting bits and stories came out of television.
Yeah,
and. Whenever I read a television script, I thought there's great characters, great story, and whenever my agent sent me one of those, with all respect, the Hollywood movies, blockbusters, I thought this is a piece of crap, So I didn't mind at all, working, doing television or yeah, you asked if I seeking it out? No, but I was definitely looking towards, television because that's where the good stories were.
Because it seems like, you're I mean, obviously, at this point, 2 full seasons in, you're the perfect guy to play Kai Proctor, and you're top of their list. You must have, guy of your caliber, actor, you're a huge actor in Europe. You must have gone into it fairly bluntly because you probably didn't know any of the actors that were involved.
I didn't know. No, I knew Ben Cross.
Yeah.
He was in one of my favorite movies of all time.
Chariots of Fire.
Chariots of Fire. Yeah. I just talked to him for like an hour ago. I gave him a call because now he's out of the. He died. I can say that. Yeah, it's over, So I just wanted to chat with him a little bit. And, he's a lovely man and a great actor. I just want to say goodbye. Probably not just tweeting all the time. But so I knew him. I was a little familiar with Matt Savito because of The Sopranos. The others, I didn't know.
Yeah, because here's my thing. I literally watched the whole 2 seasons of Banshee in the last, I'd say 12 days or so.
Right.
Because I watched shows from the beginning. I really get in from the beginning. I mean, Sopranos, I didn't start watching until season 3. But then I saw everything in a week, and it was the greatest thing.
Yeah.
Better than movies, quite frankly. But
that's how I watch television too, because I never started when it's there. I did with True Detectives because I heard so much good about it, and it's phenomenal. And Matthew McConaughey and I don't know what he did to himself, but he's fantastic. But anyways, yeah, that's how I do it too. I never started because I know I'm gonna miss an episode here and there because I'm so busy doing other stuff all the time. Anyway, I was interrupting you.
So I don't know if you heard of Howard Stern, who's a huge radio talk show host here in America.
Yeah, I know.
But he's a huge fan of Banshee, and he loves all the other Breaking Bad, Boardwalk Empire, Walking Dead. But he always talked about Banshee, and I said, well, I got to check this out. And I watched the whole first season. I thought, this is really great. But here's the thing, though. The first episode, there's no dialogue, and he comes out of prison, and it's just music, and he has sex with the first bartender he sees. And I thought maybe this is kind of a late-night, cheesy Cinemax movie. Then as soon as I saw you in your Amish suit, and I said, oh, there's Ulrich Thomsen. I said, oh, this is going to be all right. Because you're the name of the show. Now they all got following, and guys like Hoon Lee, and Lily Simmons. I mean, they're tremendous.
Yeah.
When I saw you in there, I thought, oh, this is probably going to be a good show. And of course, Alan Ball. So it had to be something you have to watch a couple of shows to see.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very kind of you.
So have you enjoyed developing the character? Because, Kai Proctor, the difference between him and Rabbit, for instance, is that he takes care of business himself. So he does his own ass kicking. He does his own killing. He doesn't send a bunch of gangsters or whatever. And I'm sure he could. So, it's a very interesting character.
Yeah. Well, I was attracted to the character of out of the pilot. I liked the fact that he had an Amish background, and he was shunned by his family, and he had this strong father, problem issue with his family in general, and there was this presentation of him where he's splitting up a fight, and his father is involved with a bunch of other Amish people. And so he goes to his father, and his father doesn't want to know of him. And then he goes back to his home where he has this girl sitting around, and he's getting one of the girls to perform like a sexual services on him, while she's wearing an Amish bonnet. He takes off his shirt, and he has this, big tattoo, Jesus hanging on the cross, and I thought on his back, and I thought that's an interesting character, and it has both a good psychology and it has a genre, and it's funny, and it's kind of, so I thought that could be interesting, it's just not a bad guy. He has proper issues, and going forward, you know, with the episodes, I'm always striving for, you know, maintaining that psychology and always trying to give, although he is a bad guy, give him a good reason for doing stuff, you know. And towards bit in second season, it shifted a little. He became a little more to my liking, a little more sort of psychopathic, and I thought, you know, I'm not in charge of everything, you know, but I think if you play a bad guy, you want to find a good reason for his actions, you know, and they can be pretty bad, but as long as you have good reasons for his actions, I think you can understand the guy and to some extent also like the guy. But the minute it becomes just that you take away the reasons and it just becomes you just explore a side of that doesn't just go for this, but any bad guy, you just see a behavioral pattern of craziness, then I personally lose interest in him, you know. So, but it's good. I mean, it's also funny with television, because you don't quite know this. Obviously, you know the scripts because they come along all the time. So it's like you plunge in on deep water and you just explore the character, really, you know, and you have no knowledge of where he's going, and it's as to a movie where you know everything beforehand, and so it's quite funny as well, just to, you know, to add on new sides of him, and
how much input were you allowed to have as far as for develop the direction of the character? Because, you know, I thought it's very clever. Your part is really well. I mean, I'm glad it's, you know, well, the directions of your character is going the way it is. It's very well written, because the guy's about to own the town until Sheriff Hood comes in.
Right.
Then he's a bad guy, but then he kind of, you feel like maybe they're going to coexist. Maybe he'll find out what Hood is, and you know, he'll help him out, you know, financially or whatever. But then he becomes like a, you know, like you said in the second season, like a real bad guy.
Yeah. I have. I mean, they're very. It's a great team all in all, and they put a lot of trust in the actors and their opinions, but obviously there are many characters, you know, and there are many people to serve in terms of always have this this talk, you know, and. So yeah, I mean, it's primarily it's well written. You know, there are times because there's so much to do and so many storylines to keep track of that now and again, you know, some psychology and reason slips a little, but then you just point it out and they correct it. So in that way, I think it's good. So yeah, I mean, I haven't done TV before in America, but I could imagine it could be very, you know, way more, you know, strict in terms of the director is saying this and the network is saying that, and you just have to bow and do what's told, you know. And but this is definitely different. If that's correct, the first assumption, it reminds me of the way that we work here back in Denmark, where basically the producer never interferes in anything. It's just, you know, the actors and the director, you know, talk about it and figure it out, you know.
Weren't you a dancer?
A dancer? No.
Okay. I thought that your first arts was dancing and then you got into acting.
No. Mads Mikkelsen, now that you mentioned him before, he used to be a dancer.
Oh, okay.
You can tell he has a little loose wrist. He's a little gay, isn't he?
Yeah, he's tremendous.
The way he walks,
yeah,
a little on the soft side. No, but no, I was in West Side Story way back, but I wouldn't say I was a dancer. I took dancing classes in acting school and stuff like that, but I was never professionally making money as a dancer. That the West Side Story was sort of a semi-professional setup that they had every year. This is back in '89, but no, sorry, that must be Matt's or something.
But the physicality of a lot of choreography going on. Did you have to do a lot of training? Because that's part of the show where there's always a lot of action, particularly for Sherry Pud, Anthony Starr. But for yourself too, I'm sure it's more physical than you've ever done.
It is. You mean the fighting and all that?
Yeah. And even when you're training, it's a lot of work, it seems like.
I know, it's quite tricky. They had this great idea once that I quite liked, that I was fighting this Wing Chun dummy, this wooden stick arms, where you train. I thought, that's funny because it's Amish, it's wood, and it's one of the few sort of training exercises where you harden yourself. Right. You're in the script. I was fighting with a sword. I had this sword routine, right. And they changed that into this because I thought that's interesting. But then, of course, I didn't realize that when you start to do that, you're actually, people would think that you're in martial arts, and so when I was fighting both Anthony in first season and some other fights, they wanted me to be to maintain that kind of a fighting style, and I never fight. I never done martial arts, so that was pretty tricky for me to try and sell that, and so we did some sort of abbreviation of it where I have these certain moves, but then I get so angry I kind of lose control and just. But I have stand-ins as well, of course, to do the trickier bits.
But you're the one guy that Sheriff Hood can't eventually always end up winning. You guys are kind of even.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
It might change at one point. We can't keep fighting all the time. So there got to be a showdown at one point.
Is Banshee big in Denmark?
Is Banshee big in Denmark?
Is there following?
Yeah, I think it's doing really well. It's showing on HBO Nordic, which is a department of HBO, and that's a paid channel. I'm not sure how many subscribers they have. Last season was bought by a regular channel if you have whatever package or plan, but I think it's doing okay actually.
Now I'm sure Mads Hannibal's playing over there too, right?
Hannibal same, yeah, that's not HBO. That was also bought by the same channel. It's called Channel 5. And it was showing last year, and I'm pretty sure it'll show a second season as well.
Are you pretty close with Mads?
Yeah, I know him very well. We're supposed to do a movie together here, but I can't because I'm doing Banshee, which was very unfortunate. I would have loved to work with him again. He's a great guy. Mm-hmm. No,
so you're not like buddies, and you're like work partners a few times.
I've done a lot with Mads. Also theater back in the day, and we lived close by, and I see him now. I see him, not so often because he's working in Toronto and he's doing all these foreign movies, and I'm doing my foreign shit. So it's become less and less. It's we meet at festivals or gatherings and stuff, which is
you and him and Adam's Apple. That must be as good as it gets. Two guys working in time. That's a pretty beautiful movie, though, isn't it?
It's one of my favorites because it's such a interesting story, and it's a black comedy, but it has a good story in it as well. I really enjoyed that one. The movie that he's doing now that I'm not doing is kind of sort of a continuation, sort of style wise of Adam's Apples, and it's I would have loved to do that, but. I can't be everywhere. Now I'm doing Banshee, which is good too. It's definitely
Right. Is it true that you came to Beverly Hills when you're after school and?
That's true. Yeah. When I was that was in '84, the last century, man. When I was a kid, I was 20. Me and some buddies, we went to Los Angeles and just hung out for a year. Right. And I was working in Westwood, and later on in Bel Air, there was a restaurant back in the day called Sancho Pietro's Pizza. I don't know if you remember it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was on Gailey and is in Westwood Gailey and on the corner of Gailey and something else. I can't remember the street name. And then off of just before Mulholland on Beverly Glen, there's a little square called the Beverly Glen Center. And he had same restaurant up there, not the same obviously, but it was his as well. So I was working up there, doing pizza deliveries.
Wow! You just wanted to come to America, or did you always fancy potentially doing movies here? And
at that time I was just I've been in school for 15 years, so I thought I just needed some time off. So. So me and my 4 friends, we were just very drunk one night, and then we said to each other, like, let's go somewhere, let's go to America and travel a bit, And so and then we woke up, and we looked at each other and said, yeah, let's fucking do it, that could be good.
Right.
So we ended up in Los Angeles and had a blast of a time, and then later on went 5 weeks to Hawaii. Waikiki Beach, and then back to Denmark.
Your background in acting is theater?
That's theater. Yeah, 4 years of theater school.
Oh, really?
In Copenhagen.
Do you have any method? Did you do Meisner or?
No, not really. No, we did all kinds of different things. I guess it wasn't like a school of some kind, I think they picked bits and pieces of all kinds of, of great sort of training ideas. Eichel Chekhov is one that we studied Chekhov, and also Keith, what's his name, the improvisation.
So it's mainly all about experience. The work got you better.
Work will always get you better. Yeah, I strongly believe that. Good work, that is. Unconscious work, that you get. The biggest pitfall is your skills as well, because you all of a sudden get to a point where you have skills and you know how to do it, but you always want to keep, exploring and surprise yourself. Just not always do, what you think is right, but try and go places. Well, of course, I was very fortunate to land some movies that became very successful. And I was getting offered to the leads all the time,
right.
Which is just. And if you have good parts, well-written good parts, you should be really slobbish to fuck that up, And
right.
It's way more difficult to be sort of the guy who just opens the door and comes in and says a few lines and walks out again. Those guys who are able to do that, it's just so difficult, It's easier. Not that it is easy, but it's easier to have a good part and to play a good part. Well, if it's a well-written part. So yeah, I was very fortunate to always have good material, basically.
You say getting involved with the Dogme 95 in the beginning, really. Was that a very significant? Obviously significant, but was it like a turning point for you also, or were you already getting leads? To a certain extent.
I was that was early in my career, but I did a few movies, lead parts, but also I did a lot of theater at that point where I played lead parts, and then Dogme 95 came along, and it was definitely a turning point for people involved in that movie. Everybody, obviously the director, there was his ticket into stardom, mine as well. Anthony Dot Mantle, who was the DP on it, later got an Oscar for Slumdog Millionaire and what have you,
right.
That he's shooting all the time. And he, so he kind of boosted everybody's careers, that one. It was never, the idea wasn't meant to go that, wasn't meant to go anywhere. It was supposed to be just, a little Danish fling, Lars von Trier, provocating people. But then it went to Cannes, as I'm sure you're aware, and it won prizes. And all of a sudden, it was the talk of town. And also, it was at a time where the computer animation, all that started, and movies got more and more sort of computerized and more expensive, and all of a sudden, you had a movie that was done for no money at all, and it traveled around the world.
Right.
And so it was kind of sort of it came out at a good time as well, and it also it created kind of a school for video, it started the whole video thing. You can shoot a movie on video. It didn't matter. You didn't have to be 35. Just have a good story, and that's the heart of Dogme. I think the cliche about Dogme is the handheld camera and the grainy, the no music. But what it actually does to the screening, the writing of it is phenomenal, because, and that's the genius of it. Where what they said, Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg, who did the rules, is like everything that they teach you in film school you can't do. Now do your movie anyway.
Right.
So it forced them to, because of the limitations, just to get the story straight, get it right. Because you can't add a car chase, you can't always have shootings or music and all those tricks that you usually do. When you have a great scene, then you take the sound from somewhere else, or you take a reaction shot from somewhere else and you put it there, and you can't do that. And everything. Sound and picture has to match, so everything you see, the reaction shot at that very particular moment is when I give the speech, when you hear me in the background, that's the reaction shot at that very moment. There's nothing you can fiddle with, and so the script writing of it is actually what's so good about the Dogme, and that's, I think, why a lot of the Dogme movies that came out of Denmark were very good, for that very reason.
Were you allowed to have multiple takes, or?
Oh yeah. The only thing you couldn't do, there weren't any marks or anything. The camera had to follow the action. That was one of the rules as well. But we did more takes, sure, yeah. It was like a regular movie that way.
But no lights, right? Everything's natural light. Natural light,
yeah. You could have, if it was a dark room, you could have a little light on the camera if it was too dark. It was like, let's say it was night, and you'd have light at least, to see something. So you were allowed some sort of light on the camera, or if you picked a location that had a candle, for instance, and it had a lighter, a box of matches in there, you could light the candle and use that if you wanted that. You couldn't buy a candle and a matchbox, and put candles all over the place, that would be like dressing it. So you had to find a location and use that location. And also you could have music. If somebody is playing if there was a piano in a room, somebody could play the piano, that was fine, but that would be in the scene.
It's like a filmmaker's exercise, isn't it, really?
It totally is, yeah. It's definitely an exercise, and but again, what it does to the script writing is interesting.
Yeah, and the performances, and the directing, I suppose.
No, sure. It's an actor's kind of movie, because there isn't anything else but the acting or the action, because the camera can't do anything but follow the action. Because I'm trained in theater, it was very sort of a theatrical kind of a movie to do, because, it wasn't like, usually when you do a movie, like for our part, the Celebration, there's a lot of people around, a lot of extras around the table. When you do your close-up, they would do my close-up, they will orchestrate a few extras next to me, and then we'll dismiss everybody else. And they would put the forks and knives on in post, and that would be that. But here you couldn't do that. So, like on stage, if the people who are there, even though it's your close up, So in that way, it wasn't very filmic. And also the little cameras that they used back then, you hardly saw them.
Yeah, they're literally handheld film cameras, right? Video cameras.
Yeah, it was the little Sony's LCD that flips open. The very first ones that came out. So sometimes they film 2 cameras and 3, and because there were so many people there, you hardly recognized or saw the DP who was somewhere in the back, you know, maybe shooting your whatever, your total, or I mean your close-up or something. So they all blended in with the crowd.
Celebration, the subject and you know the actors, pretty heavy stuff. Did that help, do you think? Because it was pretty organic that way. You know, there wasn't a lot of cuts and let's go close. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good subject matter, obviously, but what I think what this movie is doing so well, Celebration, is it's about denial in a way. It's about how people react when the truth comes, you know, it comes too close to you, and they basically just flip the page. You know, that's the sort of the whole idea. You know, I keep saying these things, I go back to the table and do this speech over and over again, but people won't listen. You know, until the very end. But because incest in a weird way is kind of not very dramatic, because it's so obvious where the sympathy is. Do you know what I mean? So if you're just making a movie about incest, it's kind of like, to me, it's like, yeah, sure, it's not good. But to turn it in a way where it talks about denial of people, I think that's a good twist, and I think that's added to, of course, the subject matter is, but also the style of it. You know, I think it in terms of the dogma, this particular movie made really sense to me, because it was like the uncle filming the party, like you have it any uncle filming the party, where some of the other dogma movies are more sort of where some of them that try to get away from the rules. You know, they're trying to, you know, how can I make my proper movie anyway, and how, you know, and you know, and still follow the rules, but how can I get around the rules? Were my impression now and again for some of the other movies that I saw. But here, it totally made sense. It was like a party. The uncle that was filming it, you know, and so that kind of narrative and realism, I think, made it very had a strong impact on the audience. And like now, we're still talking about it 15 years later, and I meet other people, and they're still one of their sort of favorite movies, which is. There's a certain amount of luck when it goes that well, I must say, you know. But it's definitely a good film, you know.
Do some of the principals still make Dogma films?
I don't know. I know there's some directors in around Europe that did a few ones. I'm not. I don't think. Well, Thomas is not doing it. Lars von Trier is not. He has a sort of a similar style still, but. Those aren't the Dogma movies.
How about you? I mean, has it rubbed off on you now that you're directing?
I didn't do a Dogma movie. No, I didn't.
But no. It must give you confidence that, you know, in certain difficult situations, that you know that you manage to do it with little equipment or. Yeah,
I have definitely. My movie that it was done very inexpensively. That's for sure, but. Because it had a sort of a poetic kind of I mean, poetry is a lot of things. It just didn't. I was thinking about sort of doing more handheld, and but it was just the way it was written. It kind of didn't quite fit the whole Dogma idea, to be honest.
Can you say a few words about? I mean, you obviously worked with Thomas Vinterberg, but you've done some great, beautiful movies with Susanne Bier. And she's like, she continues to make great films. What was your experience working with her?
It's great. I just did her last movie that she just finished with me and Nikolai Coster-Waldau. You know who he is?
Yeah. He's done good too.
Yeah. And he's in Game of Thrones, exactly. So that was good fun again. This is the third time I worked with Susanne, and she's great. Yeah, she's just great. She's just. We have a sort of a good relationship. She trusts me, you know, that I can bring something to the. You know, she's not the kind of director, you know, who are like say it like this, you know, do this, do that, you know. She brings us in from the beginning and sort of fits the story and the world not to our liking, but you know, definitely wants our inputs, and that's to me, I like that. I work with a few directors who are very, you know, lift your arm like that and do this, and it's kind of like, and then do it yourself. And if you know, if you, I think it's a good director with the minute you give away your, which you do in a way, you give away your projects to, you know, to the directors, sorry, to the actors, you know, and then the director also, you know, passes it on to the editor, you know, and the writer passes it on to the director, you know. So there's these 3 steps that you go through, and it is a collaboration of all these people involved, and you got to be very specific and very special if you can do everything yourself, you know. Kubrick, I think, was one of them who was probably would be very particular about every detail. It just came out, you know, phenomenally anyway. But I like Susanne for the reasons of, you know, her good taste, but also that she allows herself to give away, to pass on the work to the actors involved, and are very curious about their take, you know, on the subject matter and the characters. And
right. Now, you mentioned, when we were talking about Celebration a couple minutes ago, that you know, you felt it was lucky that it got the attention because the timing was right and people really paid attention to, wow, these guys are making modern cinema with these restrictions, and you know, and it really just took off. But you have been involved in some of the, you know, most significant, you know, Danish films, and also you must be very proud that, you know, you and Mads and all these great directors, what you've done for Danish films in the last 2 decades. But you've been involved in, you know, quite a few of them. Are you surprised that certain ones that have become as big as they were? I mean, you mentioned Celebration, but what, you know, how about some of the others?
Yeah, I mean,
the reception of it.
I mean, to the extent that Celebration went crazy, you can never predict, you know. And that's the thing about movies and art in general. You know, if you knew how to cut it every time, you would do it every time. So there's a certain amount of, I was pretty sure after we wrapped Celebration, I think this is going to be good. I could feel that, you know, and then, but also there's a marketing, there's a snowball effect in, oh, this is a cheap movie, it's done with these rules, you know, and people get curious, you know, and then they watch it, and then, oh, we got to see it, people talk about it, and all of a sudden it has become a thing, and so where, because you have a lot of good movies that maybe doesn't go to a festival, doesn't have that marketing Dogme, you know, thing built into it, but it's a really good film as well. And the other movies, yeah, I mean, I think it put Denmark on the map. It was before, but Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg and these guys, you know, really put it on the map. So people get curious, you know, about Danish movies, and to this day they still are. They're just good. And am I surprised? That's your question. Whether that those movies became successful? I would say I'm happily surprised. You know, you hope for the best. You pick out the good scripts, you know, and the good directors, and yeah, it's. I would say I'm not surprised that they went well. Let me be honest and say that, you know, and because I thought they were good projects from the beginning, you know, and I just hope that I was glad that they did, you know?
Right. Like some of them, like Adam's Apple, it's just a great film, you know what I mean, from the get-go. But okay, let's say, are you surprised that some of them didn't do so well, that you felt like, oh, this one's going to be another big hit?
I've done the movies that I've done of the Danish ones. I knew that some of them were small in terms of, you know, the subject matter. It was for a smaller audience, or more sort of a darker audience, and they didn't travel so well, but they were always well received, you know. So I mean, I haven't been sort of. There wasn't one movie I thought, man, this is good, and no one saw it. It was always, they always did well, you know. And I haven't done a movie where I think this is the biggest piece of shit ever, and it just exploded. It kind of always fit my expectations, you know. And to be honest, yeah.